In the military, there was an old saying. It went like this: if it ain't raining, we ain't training. And basically what that means is, if you're not out in the elements, if you're not out in the nasty weather, then are you really training? Today I'm doing a little bug out exercise. I'm doing a little carrying my pack out here in the snow. We were supposed to get a foot of snow. We only got a couple inches. But hey, promises, promises, right fellas? Anyway, today's video is going to be kind of in two sections. We're going to talk about what you need out here in the elements to stay warm, and we're going to talk about what you might need at home to stay warm. Because bugging out should be a last option, especially in weather like this. Only if it's a matter of life or death would you want to be out in the elements like this in a grid down situation. You want to stay at home, you want to bug in. So we're going to talk about what you need out here and what you need at home that will help you stay at home and so you don't have to bug out, all right? Anyway, should be a good video. I'm glad you're along with me. It's a beautiful day out here. We're probably only going to get a few miles in because walking in the snow, it's not as easy as walking on a nice day. You could probably cut your expected distance down to about 2/3 or even half when there's snow on the ground. That means however far you think you can walk, cut it in half when it's snowy outside, because you got to wear more bulky gear, you got to have more snivel gear in your pack. Well, wearing these heavy clothes, many layers of clothes, just slows you down. Not to mention the terrain, it's slippery. It's kind of like walking in sand in some places. You got to go a little slower just so you can be careful out here. So take that into consideration. Alrighty, well, let's move on down the trail. We'll continue the conversation there. So we live in northwestern Illinois. It can get pretty cold here. I know there's places of the country that get way colder than here. I get it. It's not a competition. So if you live in a cold environment like this, then chances are you probably already know how to deal with the cold. But is your idea of dealing with the cold just running from the house to the car and then park the car and from the parking lot to the office or to where you work, and that's all the amount of time you spend outside in the cold weather? If it is, shame on you. You need to get out here and spend some time out here, see how you hold up. Anyway, anyone from the north, anyone from a cold place will tell you that the key to staying warm is layers. Now, you can spend all the money in the world on some of this cold weather gear. If you're a hunter, you know what I'm talking about. They got some fancy stuff out there. But if you just keep it simple, dress in layers, that's the best way to go. We'll start at the top. I've got a pretty thick stocking hat. I've got a thinner one in the pack in case this one gets to be a little too much. In case I start to sweat, I can switch them out. Or I can double them up. I've also got a hood I can throw on top of no hats, one hat, two hat, plus a hood. We're talking layers. For my upper body, I've got a long sleeve thermal. I've got a short sleeve shirt. I've got another sweater on it. I got a hoodie. Finally, I got a good quality thick coat here. That's a lot of layers. The goal is to stay warm but not sweat, because once you sweat, you're opening yourself up to hypothermia, ice forming. You don't want that. For my pants, I got a good thick quality work pant. Underneath, I've got some thermals on. If I had to, I can go into my pack. I've got some wind pants I could put on over these to kind of keep the wind and the rain off a little bit better. On my feet, I got a good pair of combat boots, just something I'm used to wearing. And I've got 2 pairs of socks on. Now, when it comes to socks, for a guy like me who's a little heavier, your feet are the first things, at least what I feel, the effects of a long walk like this. I feel it in my feet, whether that's blisters, hot spots, or just aches and pains. So think about your feet first. Make sure you got a good pair of shoes on, and make sure you got good socks. I recommend you wear wool or alpaca wool socks. And I'd like to talk to you just for a second about a company called Hollow. They make a pair of socks right here in the USA out of alpaca wool. I've got a pair right here in my hand. Maybe you've heard me talk about these before. Now, look at these socks. I've been wearing these to work. I've been wearing these on the trail. They've been washed a few times. When you wash them, turn them inside out, wash them in cold water, hang them up to dry. Now, these socks, they're a great sock. They are a little thin. They're a little bit thin. But you know what? That's okay. You can double them up, right? If you like a thicker sock, you can double these up with a duplicate pair or another pair of socks. So, but the wool will help wick moisture away from your feet. You don't want moisture on your feet for the hypothermia reasons, for blisters, for hot spots. You want to keep your feet dry. So carry extra socks in your pack. Keep a good quality pair of socks on your feet. You know, if you want to check out the hollow socks that are made right here in America out of alpaca wool, I'll leave a link below in the description and in the comments. You can check them out, decide for yourself if it's something you want to invest in, because they're not cheap. I want to say $25 or so for a pair of socks. And you're thinking I'm crazy, right? But without your feet, what good is all this gear in your pack? How much of this stuff in your pack cost? What's your mess kit cost? What's your ferro rod cost? What's all that stuff cost? What's all that gear cost? It's not worth a damn if your feet are garbage, right? If they're covered with blisters. So get yourself a good pair of wool or alpaca wool socks. It's an affiliate link down below there. If you end up buying something, I get a small commission. So thank you if you do. But take care of your feet. All right, so we've talked about layering your clothing. We've talked about staying warm but not sweating, right? Shedding layers. You got to have extra room in your pack to store those layers. I know a lot of people get tempted to get a nice pack and then just put as much stuff in there as they can. It's filled to the brim. Don't do that. Leave some extra room for occasions like this where you might have to shed layers, where you've got to keep your other hat, right? This is a pretty thick hat, but maybe my head starts sweating. I'll put the thinner hat on, put this in the pack. Away you go. Now, whether it's cold, hot, wet, too dry, icy, snowy, rainy, whatever it is, sometimes it seems like Mother Nature is working against you. That's what being out here is all about. It's us against Mother Nature. Mother Nature is going to win out almost every time if given enough time. So we want to limit the amount of time that we're out here for. And while we are out here, we want to look for things in nature that can work for us instead of against us. You know, a brush pile could be turned into a windbreak or a shelter. A pile of scattered rocks could be stacked up to block the wind, to protect your fire or to protect you from the wind. Even this snow could be turned into a snow shelter. So keep your eyes peeled, use your imagination, use some ingenuity out here, because Mother Nature, yeah, she's trying to work against you, but she also oftentimes provides you with everything you need to survive the elements. Okay, to recap, staying inside is your best option if you can. But if you have to come outside in the elements for whatever reason, make sure that you're wearing layers, that you're shedding the layers when you start to sweat, prevent sweat. You don't need the fanciest outdoor clothing and gear. Just layer it up right. Clothing items made out of flannel, clothing items made out of wool are going to be your best friend, especially when it comes to your socks. So if you can find something that you like made out of wool or made out of flannel, pick that up. Bring extra socks. You know, if your feet get wet out here, it's going to happen probably. But if your feet get wet, you're going to have to dry them out. To prevent your feet from getting wet, make sure you got good footwear. You could even take some bread bags and use that as like a boot liner to help keep your feet dry if you really had to. You know, use your imagination, be creative, but keep your feet dry. But the wool socks will help wick moisture away from your feet. You know, while your footwear might be a little wet, the actual surface of your feet will still be dry. Anyway, we've talked enough about outside. Let's talk about bugging in. Bugging in is always a better option than bugging out. Unless some situation arises where you absolutely have to leave your home, you should stay there. Now, some of the things that will keep you there longer and more comfortably are going to be things like this. This is a portable generator. This has a 4,000 peak watt capacity, but 3,500 is what it's rated for. Just call it 3,500 watts. So what you do is if you got a 100-watt light bulb, well, you could run 35 of those off of this. Now those portable space heaters, some of those use 1,000, 1,500 watts. You know, it's not going to take very many before it maxes something out like this. So heat, not really something you want to run off a generator. You're going to run out of available watts really quick. These can be kind of pricey. Look them up, do your own research. But think about this: what would it cost you if you lost everything in your freezer? How much would it cost if you lost everything in your refrigerator? Add up the price of those groceries. This makes more and more sense the more you think about it. So, let's say it's cold outside. You got this out on the patio. You got to run an extension cord from this into your house. I'm going to give you a little tip, something I do. You know that deadbolt on your door or the doorknob on your door? Pick one of those, take it out, run your extension cord through that hole in your door. Now you can open and close your door without pinching the extension cord, causing a hazard, right? To keep the cold air out, wrap a sock around that extension cord and jam it into your hole where your deadbolt used to be. There you go. You leave enough slack, you can open that door, close it, no problem. And you're not pinching the cord or doing anything unsafe, right? You don't have to run the cord through an open window, something goofy like that. Run it through the hole that's already in your door. But yeah, wrap a sock around that cord, jam it in the hole. It'll keep the cold air, keep the bugs out, stuff like that. All right. These are heavy. It took a lot for me just to lift it up here on this table, and I'm not sure this table is designed to hold this much weight. So what we do a lot of the times, we got one of those heavy-duty wagons with the inflatable wheels on it, inflatable tires. We'll put this on that wagon, throw a couple zip ties around it, and you could pull it around with a wagon pretty easy. During the derecho we had come through here a couple years back, some of you might remember that, we were without power for what, 12 days? This thing was worth its weight in gold. In fact, we were able to cart it around the neighborhood. There's a couple little old ladies down the street, and we would let them run their fridge and their freezer for a few hours and then wheel it back to our place and plug our fridge and freezer into it. It was a lifesaver. So if you can get something like this, that's great. Now, these are loud. In an SHTF situation, this is going to be heard for, I wouldn't say miles away, but I bet you'd be able to hear one of these things running maybe up to a mile away. So there's different things you could do. You could build little soundproofing boxes, sandbag it, things like that. Definitely when it's sitting on the ground, it'll shake, creating a lot of vibration. If you put this thing up on a few sandbags to kind of absorb that, it actually helps keep the noise down. But this is going to draw attention to your location. The next item that I think you should have in your home to help you in a cold weather bug-in situation is going to be a kerosene heater. We've had this one for a couple years. It'll heat, I don't know, at least 1,000 square feet of the house. Sometimes if you got more room than that, you can close off some rooms or something and have everybody huddle up in the living room. This will keep quite a bit of the house warm. Now this one has a little easy light switch. These break, they always break. So you'll have to put it in the on position, open this door up, put one of those long lighters in there and light it manually. These, they just always break. This is about a 2-gallon tank, fuel tank here, and that'll last about 12 hours. So this thing's going to burn through about 4 gallons a day. So with this, I'd recommend getting about 4 of these 5-gallon kerosene tanks. But if this burns 4 gallons a day, this holds 5, and I've got 4 of these, that means I've got 5 days of heat on hand. Kerosene stores really well. It's not like gasoline where it goes bad really quick, so you can store this for a long time. And we've used this to heat our house in the middle of winter when everything went out a number of times. Another item you should definitely have is a good wool blanket. This one is a government issue wool blanket, military government issue. They're thin, they're light, but they're warm. You should have one of these for every person in your household, at least. Now, this is a U.S. military issue one. I hear the Swiss wool blanket is a little heavier, a little better. I don't have one yet, but I will. Trust me. I hear they're really good. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. But definitely, yeah, these things are great. They're big enough to cover from head to toe for most people. The problem with it is if you got pets like we do, it's like a hair magnet. This just came out of the laundry. Wash these with cold water, hang them to dry just like wool socks. You wash those with cold water, you hang them to dry, but there's still hair all over it. Nevertheless, it will help keep you warm in a grid down situation. So get one of these for every member of your family, keep them in the blanket closet, or you could just use them every day too. They're good blankets. So a portable generator, a kerosene heater, at least 20 gallons of kerosene fuel on hand, some good wool blankets. You should be able to stay warm in most situations. Now, ideally, let's talk about wood stoves. Ideally, a wood stove would be great, but for some people, it's just not possible. Rules and regulations, all that stuff. If a lot of people, if they have a wood stove hooked up, it voids out their homeowner's policy. Be careful before you install a wood stove. I grew up with wood heat. From the late 70s to the mid 80s, that's all I knew was a wood stove. That's all we had for heat. So that's how I grew up. And the next place I live will have a wood stove in it. I think they're great. This area that I live in, there's plenty of wood available. Some of you might live in an environment where there's not many trees, so a wood stove wouldn't make sense for you. But for around here, they're great. They're great, and I fully intend to have one soon. So those are the three main items you should have. A bonus item, mostly just because I want to show off something new I picked up. Get you a Coleman stove. Now, you can't use these indoors, all right? They're meant for use outdoors. So if you don't have a backyard grill or something like that, this is something you could easily just store away. And if the natural gas was shut off or something like that, you still got a way to cook food, to boil water, or even to melt snow to have some water to drink. Back in my younger days when I was growing up, we used to have to melt snow water on our wood stove so we could take a bath. Can you believe that? Yeah. A lot of these can use either gasoline or white gas. The different models are approved for different things. But in a grid down situation, you can make do with what you have. So don't use these inside. Don't use them as a source of heat, but you could keep this stored in the garage or something like that. And in a grid down situation, you got a way to cook. This one is a 426D, the 3-burner. I'm so stoked. So we'll be featuring this in an upcoming video. Speaking of upcoming videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. You don't want to miss out on any cool stuff we're going to be doing around here. Also, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. If you didn't enjoy the video, leave a comment. I know I left a lot of stuff out. Cold weather survival. Like I said, you could write a book on it. You could write 10 books on it. There's no way we can cover it all here. So if you've got any cold weather survival tips, leave those in the comments. I'd be happy to hear from you. Anyway, I'll see you guys on down the trail. Until then, I hope you have a great day.